Hi, this is John again, the owner and developer of VectorDecks. In this tutorial, we're going to go over how you can add a custom-made center object to VectorDecks Use Real Objects option menus. This process is very similar to the baluster, where we're going to need to know exactly where the particular object is going to be within the rail system, but we need to know one other thing, is the width. The balusters will have this information and be placed along a rail at a given space, but depending on the object you create here, this particular opening is going to be critical. I just created this just simple version. I didn't get this off anyone's manufacturing website or anything. And I also created a 42-inch version of it, and these two top are the three-dimensional components. I can show you that in the front view. You see one is taller than the other. Also, I've created a 2D version of it and placed it exactly where it needs to be within the rails, top and bottom rails. I extended this dotted line out from the top of the rail and the bottom of the top rail, and the same for the bottom. That way I know where it's fitting and how it's setting inside that rail. And as you see here at the bottom, I cheated a little, just like I did with the balusters. And then what I did is, these dotted lines are like the balusters themselves, and I can move it around and see where it should be placed. And a critical thing in designing your center object, I think in most cases you'll be getting this information from a manufacturer. I can't imagine anybody actually making one of these themselves. Is you can't have any more than a certain opening in your rail. I believe the code is no more than 3.5 inches. So you can't design something that's going to leave an opening that's more than 3.5 inches. So you want to make sure you design or you get a center panel that meets this requirement. And then what I do is I take these particular dotted lines, which are the balusters, and I move them in and come to a point where I know this is the clearance I need to place this particular object. And then the second thing, as in with the rail, you want to make sure your bottom distance from the deck surface itself is information that you have available to you. And I made this the same as the baluster because I want this to definitely fit within this particular design rail. Now it may or may not fit in the other styles you have, and in that case you may have to make another version of this, but this definitely will fit in this rail, and you have a little room at the bottom to change this dimension. And now I know this is all going to work within VectorDecks rail system. I also created a 42-inch version of this. These are the three-dimensional components. Now we're ready to take this over and insert it into VectorDecks. So I'm going to first bring over the 36-inch. There we go. Do a copy. Now I'm going to go over to that blank document again. Go ahead and paste it in here. Now, when in all doubt, I always just drag it and put it in the center of that document. Now, let's go over here to the resource, scroll down to VectorDecks data folder, and this is a center object. So we need to open this rail center objects folder. Let's go ahead and open that. And again, you want to try to match up the object to what's in here. I'm just going to grab any of these 36, and I'm going to right click and duplicate it. Let's rename this just let's say the 36R diamond. That shape is a diamond. All right, and click OK. Now we're going to have to go in there and edit, but let's go ahead and copy this first. Now select that diamond, go here and edit. It's a three-dimensional object. And what we have in here is the existing one that we duplicated. Let's go to the front. You see here, it's square kind of. It's a little different than the one we have. Now, this particular object. It's not critical on where it's placed in the front, because we're going to need to move it to the specs that we created. So let's go back to the top, and I'm going to delete that. I got multiple objects in there, so I'm going to delete them all. And we're going to go ahead and paste in that new one. And again, drag it to its center. Now it's placed at the top, dead center, as shown here. Now let's go to the front view. Let's see where everything looks. Now remember, back in the template, we know that the bottom needs to be 3 3/4 up from the floor. So let's double check this. We're in screen view. I'm going to click on this and see where we are. Yeah, we're at that 3 3/4, so we're okay there. I'm going to go back to that top view. Now it's really important that we again go to its record. It's deselected, and let's click on that data record. Now everything is either zeroed out or blanked out except for one critical dimension, and that's the clearance. And that's that distance we established when we created this from this template. As you see here, when I set this all up, I established that the actual opening that needs to be provided for this particular finished centerpiece to slip in there is 7 3/4 inches. And that tells VectorDecks, when you have a rail system and you have all the rail balusters all the way through, that when we insert this, it needs to go in the center and make an opening 7 3/4 to allow this to fit and still conform to all our code requirements. And then from these 2 points on, your rail-on centers will be placed. So we know we need 7 3/4 inches clearance. Let's go back to the document. We're still in that edit mode in here, so let's go ahead and select that and change that 13 to 7 3/4. Okay, that's real important. Like I said, anytime you see dimension here, VectorDecks needs that for certain calculations in the rail system. Now we can exit this symbol, and we have that new 36-inch diamond, and it's placed at the right elevations and the clearance is set. Now we need to go back and grab that 42-inch one. So I'm going to go back over here and scroll to the top and select that 3-dimensional 42-inch one. Copy. Go back into this document. Let's get rid of this one here. I'm going to paste it. Let's move that to the center. Alright, now I got the 42-inch here. Now we're still working in this folder, so we can just go ahead and select that new one we just created at 36 and duplicate it. And we'll just change this to a 42 diamond. Click OK. And let's go in and let's edit this, but let's first copy this. Now we're going to go in that 42-inch one. Let's get rid of that 36. Go ahead and paste in the 42. We'll drag it to its center, make sure we're top dead center, and let's double check that front clearance. Make sure we have that 3 3/4. Yep, we do. So we're okay on the elevation portion too. Go back to the top. Let's check its records, and because we copied over the 36-inch version, that's already there, so we don't have to change anything. So now we're ready to go ahead and exit out of our 42-inch center panel, and we have it over here, 42-inch diamond. Now let's go ahead and save this as a stationary again, so we didn't lose all these different objects. Delete that item and select Save as Template. We're going to overwrite that number 10, replace it. Now in the next tutorial, we're going to go ahead and test all these placements of all these different objects in VectorDecks, and I'm going to show you how they'll all appear in the menus, and we'll see how they all look in the document. But we'll cover that in the next tutorial.